People are going to be shocked when the YouTube side of this fully visualizes you removing your teeth at some point in one of the episodes.
My teeth will not be removed.
You got to. Is there a fix-a-dent kind of denture thing that's going to make sure that?
No, I'm not ready to remove them yet.
Okay.
No, it's going to take more than 2 beers to get me to remove my teeth.
At some point, your vulnerability will subside, and you will open yourself up to the audience and fully expose the toothless, ruthless Tom Beerman.
It's happened. Many times before.
We're going to GOATQUEST is going to switch it up today. Yes. I think that's a better way to start the show. I don't know about you.
A little early.
Little early, but, it hits.
It does.
It hits just right. And
it does.
It hits on a GOATQUEST afternoon where we are going to be tackling the great debates per usual. And today's great debate is about the college football season, the 2024-25, as it goes into the playoff, into the college football championship game. It'll be January 20th in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We will see 2 teams coming out of a 12-team playoff in what is really a new era for college football for a lot of reasons. Nick Saban out of the game completely for some of those reasons. Why don't you tee that up? What's the new landscape look like in college football, and why is it so controversial?
Well, look at Nick Saban this year. It's the NIL money, right? And we were talking about it earlier. It's a different game to coach. How are you going to keep kids happy? How are you going to make sure that they're not leaving, going to another team for more money? How are you going to get them to do what you want?
That's the thing for me is the motivational levers, right? Every coach has a series of buttons that they push to motivate players, levers that they can yank on to make sure that they're successful. And when you take away those levers, they can be set adrift. And I think that's where Saban ended up. And we've heard the story about his wife, saying that these parents, all they care about is the money, and to a degree, it changes their life, right?
I hate to say it though. If I had that opportunity to make $2, $3, $4 million, even $1 million, it's life-changing for someone. Most people in football are lower middle class. Most people that we played with were definitely lower middle class, and that's life-changing. So I get it, but they're the ones that made the rules. We were talking earlier, Joe and I were, about how much money you can get in an NIL contract, and none of it's reported.
It's all private.
It's all private.
It's all part of a cabal. It's an opaque situation where collectives. So let me set the stage for you, for those in our audience who don't understand what the portal and the NIL is. NIL is name, image, and likeness. So what has happened is that new legislation passes, and now it is legal to compensate players based on the value of their name, image, and likeness. This was always fiercely debated, right? Chris Webber's jersey is selling all over Ann Arbor's campus, and Chris Webber can't have a new SUV, right? Even though they're making tons of money off of his name. The big court case was Ed O'Bannon out at UCLA, supported by Sonny Vaccaro, who was just featured in the movie about Nike, the Michael Jordan movie. These early basketball players and stars who could have gone right into the NBA if the NBA would have allowed it. They were bankable names, sponsorship, all of the advertising accoutrements could have been at their disposal. They weren't able to earn that. Now, under NIL rules, they can earn it, but they can even go further. You can just flat out pay them, right? The collectives make the rules. The collectives are groups of boosters that get together. They pool their money and they allot that money based on the players, the needs that the coaches describe to them in the recruiting process. So then the last chapter of this is that the agencies come in and facilitate sponsorships, advertising for companies. Usually many of these companies have affiliations to the boosters or the universities, where that name value can then be monetized as an advertisement, a sponsorship. And then in certain more charitable circumstances, the player will actually show up at a children's hospital or at some autograph signing event for kids, and they get compensated for all these different things. But there's also nonprofit collectives One group is led by Hannibal Navies, who played in the NFL for a while, out in Colorado grad, and the cousin of a good friend of the show, Hubert Paynes, where they actually set up the nonprofits to pay the players all the same amount. If you remember, this was the TCU, the first NIL program, where that great TCU team came out of nowhere and made the college football playoff. Everybody on that team was making like $40,000 a year, right? So there are situations where this can be doled out very differently. How would that have changed your perspective as a player and your thinking about it from a coach?
Changes everything. I mean, where does it stop? It doesn't. There's no limit on anything. So I get that you're going to get what you're worth, but I think that's what it should be. It's college football. More people watch college football almost than the NFL. That's not true. More people watch NFL. You're making all that money for the school. You're making all that money for the car dealerships in the area. Everything goes up when a college football team plays well. So I think they should get paid, but it's tough. It's tough. I think you were telling me earlier that there's no limit. I mean, somebody's going to get $20 million, and they're not even going to want to go pro.
They get their value, right? They get their
value.
Their value on the open market. Now, the value is perception, right? There's a lot of fugazis out there, right? A lot of people, the perception of someone coming in, and we've already seen some universities get bilked on this deal, where a Quinn Ewers comes in or another player comes in, gets money from one school, transfers to another school. There really is no takebacks, right? You give the money as a bonus to someone for their name, image, and likeness. You've got X amount of time to monetize it. If they leave you and go on down the road with that money, it isn't like you can tie it to performance.
Yeah. We talk a lot about old school or new school, right? And I've got a couple buddies that coach in the NHL, and they're definitely old school. How do you coach? You have to change the way you coach. You have to change what you say. You have to change the way you motivate people. It's a completely different way than you were brought up coaching, the way you coached when you were younger.
You can't tell some kid to kiss your ass and go to the locker room and find a new play. It's your job on the line if you lose a top recruit that the collective paid for, right? Correct. They made an investment in a kid, and then you told the kid to go pound sand.
So the way it works, and I'm asking you this, is if I got $5 million to go to Michigan, okay, and I left that year and decided to go to Ohio State, I don't have to pay that $5 million back?
If it was allotted to you up front as an exchange for the value of your name, image, and likeness, then you can move on down the road. Now, granted, there's contractual obligations, so depending on the contracts, but if you negotiated a signing bonus and in that negotiation, some of that money was guaranteed, you get to keep the portion that's guaranteed. Wow. And it cannot be tied to performance. This is the key. You can't subtract money from somebody.
If they throw three interceptions.
If they suck eggs in their performance on the field. Wow. That's the part. They are not being compensated.
It's going to change high school football. It's going to change junior football.
There are already states.
It's going to change everything.
There are already states that have legalized it for high school football. There are already high school football players
that are getting NIL money.
That are getting NIL money. That are getting the local car dealership. I mean, think about it. Texas high school football. Right? I mean, these kids are celebrities in their towns when they're in high school. Now, I'm not saying Texas is one of them, but there are states that have already said, hey, look, it's a free market. The kid can apply for a job, which of course kids can at 16, 17, 18 years old. If you can apply for a job, if you can be in the working market, then you can be compensated for your name, image, and likeness.
I guess it's not that bad of a situation.
Are we forgetting?
But for a player, right? You can get cut from any team at any time. Anytime they can cut you. The school will disown you, the team will disown you, and you get no money.
That's right.
Why can't you, if you have the power, be able to pick where you want to go?
It's right.
And who's going to pay you the most amount of money?
As old school as we all want to be, as much as we want to, hold on to these treasured values of, the bottom line is that fair is fair. If you got a 15-year-old kid that's a Premier League soccer player, which they've had 15, 16-year-olds, Tracy Austin, remember her, the little tennis player?
Yeah.
What was she, 15 or 16 when she won Wimbledon? She's not allowed to make money off of endorsements? Yeah. Of course she is. So why should it be any different from an athlete? Is it because, and I'm sure that this is not the case, right? Race and lower economics never come into the picture, right? This is the debate. If it wasn't a wealthy sport, tennis, golf, right, with a bunch of people who are white athletes, right? You go into basketball and football where there's a lot of African-American athletes. All of a sudden now the rules change. Where the little white girl was able to make a ton of money as a 15, 16-year-old, but these young black men can't make money off of their name. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to call the race card on all this, but it certainly seems interesting that in certain sports with a certain level of monetary exchange, it seems to be okay. But for basketball players and football players, it's not.
Yeah. Look at John. Look, you saw the special on Johnny Manziel that's out. His dad walked right into the head coach and said, "This is what I want. Give me this money or my son's not playing." And he got the money.
And it goes back. I mean, Johnny Manziel's a great example of that because that documentary is now out there for people to consume and see how this was working before the portal and before name, image, and likeness. But it goes all the way back to the 1950s. I mean, Bud Wilkinson at Oklahoma and the athletic director there created the Touchdown Club. This was a group of boosters who got together and pooled together money to give players jobs in the offseason. And these were high-paying jobs that had a very low burden of working hours. I mean, the classic case goes all the way into Barry Switzer in the 1980s at Oklahoma, where Brian Bosworth is famously watching an oil well go up and down, working oil well security for a good amount of money. This stuff went on all over the place, and we've seen investigations for it. And I think what's sad is that the NCAA didn't figure out a way to manage this much, much sooner, because it does cast a pall over a lot of programs that were that people were suspicious of.
Yeah. It's just interesting. It's like such a different way to think about football than when we played. It was never, we were all broke. Right? We all had nothing. We all came from nowhere. We all had a scholarship that barely covered our college. Actually, our scholarship didn't cover all of our college. We had to pay for our food. We had to pay for books. Maybe not the last couple of years I didn't. But it was not 100% covered. Now, it's 100% covered. Plus, they give you money on the side.
Everything's covered.
Plus, you've got all kinds of other options. You can do commercials. You can do TV or whatever. You're going to do a podcast. All that stuff is available.
What makes it the second level of complication is the portal. All right, so we've covered NIL.
Yeah.
The portal is now the eBay marketplace, right? I put myself out there online and I say, I am eligible to transfer to your school. Do you like my wares? Right? It's a fashion show online where players can say, I'm ready and able. Do you want me? And the NIL piece, how much, right? That may be even more of a struggle for coaches because now they're recruiting for the portal instead of going into high schools. And what I'm hearing from parents, right, that are of our age, that have kids that are coming out of this, that the heat, the focus that used to come to high school recruiting has now been so distracted into portal recruiting that it just isn't the same. You're not getting these national signing days and letters of intent and everything. It isn't nearly as important as it was previously.
Yeah. I mean, imagine you're Michigan State and you get 3 D1 defensive tackles that come to your school that are good, that are 23 years old. Do you care about a freshman?
Yeah.
No, because you want to win this year.
And you're still looking at the COVID cycle of players where they got the extra redshirt year. So you're still looking at seniors right now that if they maxed out the system, a lot of seniors that are redshirt seniors have the extra year, and they're 25 years old.
Yeah.
That's a man.
That's a man.
I just turned 18 when I played my first college game. Yeah. I'm going against a guy who's 7 years older than me. 7 years of training, of muscle mass, of learning the system, making the system instinctive. I mean, if I had 7 years at my position, I wouldn't have had to think about the playbook.
No question.
You're just playing football.
Just playing football. You're strong, you're big. I mean, it's like that in hockey. You know, there's a lot of 17, 18-year-old hockey players that got to play against 25-year-old men.
Yeah.
And it's tough.
And in football, remember, the difference between football and all the other sports. Now hockey is the one where you might be able to carve out instances of this because of the high-speed hitting. Football is not a contact sport. It's a collision sport. Mm-hmm. These are high-speed traffic accidents. When you look at the guys are running 20 miles an hour, right? So
correct.
You have high-speed traffic accidents happening, and because of the equipment, they're able to throw themselves at each other at that high speed in very dangerous ways. Rugby, Gaelic football, all these other, Australian rules football, all the different styles of football that don't have pads. And they say, oh, well, we are tougher because we don't have pads. Well, you don't hit as hard because you don't have pads.
Correct.
You don't have guys running 4.3 40s and lighting up the other guy who's going the same speed in the other direction.
Yeah. Yeah, and if the football player doesn't play in that fashion, in a nasty fashion, with trying to rip someone's head off, he'll be cut. With most things, there's a fine line. There isn't with football. There just isn't. You have to use your head. And it is good that we've changed the rules and that, a receiver going over the middle can't get hit anymore like he used to. But it's really hard to play the game and not still concussions all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, look at kickoffs. Do you see kickoffs now?
I know. I do kind of.
I don't know if I like it.
I kind of like it.
I don't know what. I saw him line up.
There's so many touchbacks.
What the fuck is going on?
At least they're trying to put the ball in play now.
I guess so. And then if you don't kick it between the 20 and you get a penalty and it goes to the 40. What?
I know. It's a little discombobulating.
Yeah.
We got to get into our lists now.
Okay.
We've set the tone. The portal and NIL has changed the game significantly. It's changed the way people recruit. It's changed the way, the age, the vintage of the players that you're going to see on the field, and that weighs into this. But we still have 4 now. Remember, bye-bye Pac-12. We have 4 now major conferences. And then the group of 5, the at-large group of 5 teams that many people think will sneak in to take one of the 12 spots. There are a 12-team playoff that will extend to the end of the season. So let's start right here at home with the Big Ten, with the national championship aura that still revolves around the Michigan Wolverines right down the road. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh leaves to go to the NFL, but the Big Ten is still going to play prominently in this. The 2 favorites in the Big Ten are Ohio State and Oregon. But how can you take the national champion that's got a fully loaded defense coming back out of the mix? And, of course, Penn State is sitting there in many people's top 10 with Iowa and Wisconsin knocking at the door. What do you think about the Big Ten? Who comes out of there?
I like Oregon. I really do. They've got most of the people back. They've got a quarterback that's great. Defense is solid. I think they've got a lot of athletes on the team.
Dylan Gabriel comes from Oklahoma.
Dylan Gabriel. Well, he went to Central Florida first, right?
But there's good luck here in transferring from Oklahoma. The Oklahoma pipeline of quarterbacks, right? Jalen Hurts comes back through Oklahoma.
You love everybody.
Caleb Williams came from Oklahoma to win the Heisman Trophy. There's good Heisman Trophy vibrations for Dylan Gabriel, but that's a nice piece for Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks, right? I mean, to plug in that piece.
Yeah, it's going to be an adjustment, though. I mean, you're coming from the Pac-12, Pac-12 to the Big Ten, and you're traveling. The travel's different.
That's a good point.
And there's a lot of good teams in the Big Ten. It's going to be different football. Be different. It's going to be. It'll be interesting to see how they adjust.
Ohio State loaded up. They went out into the portal. They got Judkins from Ole Miss. They picked up Will Howard from Kansas State at the quarterback position. So they went and got a running back and a quarterback. They probably got the best defensive back in Caleb Downs, the transfer from Alabama. They're just spending money, right? So another interesting thing about this year is we're going to see, and I don't put any blame on anybody. I would do exactly the same thing if I had the money and wanted to win a national championship. We're going to see the experiment this year of whether or not cash can buy a college football championship, because Ohio State has taken they have taken all the restraints off. They have spent money in every aspect of the recruiting calendar, and they have brought in almost all the big hitters in all the spots, right? I mean, Judkins comes in, and they've already got Travion Henderson, right? So they're loaded at every position. We'll see if Ohio State can get over the hump, and Ryan Day, with all of these tools, can win a national championship. But he's still got to go through Michigan, and he hasn't proven that he can do that.
One thing that we have learned, money can buy a football team, right? I mean, just look at the old NFL teams when they were stacked and there wasn't free agency and you could hold on to a player. Yeah, I mean, you can buy a team. You can absolutely buy a team. There's going to be teams that come up this year. I actually think that one of the, I think an outlier's Ole Miss. I've heard that their transfer portal was huge. They got a bunch of defensive linemen and offensive linemen that they need. They've got good skill positions. I think Ole Miss is. I have them in the top 4.
They've got my front runner for the Heisman Trophy too. I think Jackson Dart with at the quarterback position with Lane Kiffin. Obviously, with Judkins gone, they're going to be featuring the passing game. Not that they won't plug in another running back that'll rush for 1,000 yards, but obviously the passing game is the feature set, and that's going to benefit Dart.
So, do you think Judkins left just for the money?
I have to believe. I mean, well, how do you put yourself in a?
He's starting.
Maybe because he can't be thinking I'm going to get more shine, more spotlight. Because,
but Joe, if you remember, but when we were in college, we were broke. We were broke. $20 in our pocket, broke. And our parents didn't have any money. They did okay, but they didn't have any extra money. Would you leave for $1 million and go play at Grand Valley or go somewhere else? $1 million?
The economics is silly.
It's not even a question
at this point. The life-changing elements of this. It's easy for people who have money, who come from money, to say, "Oh, I'm going to sit on the honor of the commitment that I made to the program." When you don't have a pot to piss in, and you've got a single mom, like many of us, the way we came up through football, you're doing something for your mom who sacrificed much of in many cases her life dreams to facilitate your dreams. And for people who don't understand that, they're never going to get it.
Yeah, you got to live it. You've got to live it every day and live without money and be broke. That's the only way you know that.
Yeah, growing up broke is no fun, and you get a chance to put a $2 million ticket in your pocket. That's the Willy Wonka moment where you take advantage.
I'd be gone.
Yeah,
I'd be gone.
You switched gears over to the SEC. Yeah. Before we leave the Big Ten, I want to say Wisconsin. Wisconsin, and I know you've got family out there. You've been out to Camp Randall. The Wisconsin Badgers have, in my opinion, the best coach in the Big Ten in Luke Fickell. But it isn't just Fickell's coaching. He has all fifth-year seniors. This roster of his is they lost Thompson on the D-line the other day, and I was like, oh, that's really going to hurt. I looked, they plugged in a fifth-year senior. They lost their best defensive lineman, they plugged in a fifth-year senior. They're fifth-year seniors everywhere. They've got Taylor Van Dyke, the Miami quarterback who transferred to Wisconsin. Wisconsin is fifth-year seniors at every position with the best coach and a very favorable schedule. So watch Wisconsin this year as a sleeper. In the SEC, obviously Georgia is going to come in as the front runner. I think you're right. The rising team is Ole Miss. Alabama is sitting right there with them. A lot of people like Josh Heupel and the Tennessee Volunteers. But think about that. I just mentioned a handful of teams. We haven't mentioned Texas yet.
Yeah.
They're in the SEC.
Yeah.
And Texas is a favorite for many. Quinn Ewers is a favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. Sarkisian is loaded. What do you think about the Texas Longhorns' chance?
I love them. You know, the hard part is the transfer portal. is just really understanding what these teams are getting and how good they're going to be quickly. So that's what we talked about. Could a team completely, like Missouri, switch it around if they had the right guys come in, if it was 6 or 7 guys?
Our old buddy Brian Kelly at LSU.
Yeah.
We haven't brought up LSU.
Yeah.
Nussmeier is another kid who could win the Heisman Trophy if LSU lights it up. There's going to be a couple games here. Missouri is a top 10 team. Drinkwitz, the new coach there, has come in and set Missouri on fire with strong performances, and they went out into the portal and got some good players. And the SEC, with Oklahoma and Texas coming in, this conference is just... whoever comes out of there, actually, the 2 teams that are in the championship game are automatically in the 12.
If you were a college and you're in the SEC, you have to dominate the transfer portal. You have to, or you're done. You're done.
There's too much talent.
There's too much talent, and there's too much, and you've obviously got the money. You're in the SEC. I think that's got to be the number one thing you're working on.
Perfect.
Is raising money,
and that's the perfect segue to the ACC, because that is where the one guy who has rejected the transfer portal lives and breathes. Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers have rejected the transfer portal. He doesn't mess with it, much to the chagrin of many of his boosters and followers. But
he can lose people.
He can lose people, and has.
Yeah.
And has, but he won't recruit there. He'll take a transfer, a normal transfer that just wants to transfer to Clemson. He won't go into the portal and do your bidding, right? That's a statement, and that's a team that, especially, this episode is going to drop somewhere after the season begins, but I will hint to you, we already know that Florida State has one loss at this point in the season,
sure.
Right? So Florida State is a contender. Now Miami is certainly an ACC contender with Cam Ward coming over from Washington State. He's a Heisman candidate. Clemson's got Klubnik at the quarterback position, but Clemson's loaded all over the field. And on the defensive side, Clemson's going to be very, very good. One of these teams for sure is coming out of there. And I'm going to call the rising star out of that one. Grayson McCall comes over from Coastal Carolina to NC State. A lot of people are going to be looking at North Carolina State to be a shocker there, and SMU coming into that conference. SMU's got a veteran club with Peyton Stone.
Back to the coaches again. I'm sure the guy's a good coach, but it's all about the players for me. I mean, a coach transferring to another school, for me, I just don't believe that he can make a bad player a good player. So.
Yeah, we didn't bring up some of these guys, right? So, for instance, the Arizona coach. Wow, what a turnaround the Arizona Wildcats had last season, cracking into the some people's top 10. That coach, Fish, leaves, goes to Washington, takes over for Kalen DeBoer, who took over at Alabama. The coaching carousel goes round. Arizona lost 10 players that went with him. Do you remember how pissed off I was when Lincoln Riley went to USC and just took Caleb Williams with him? This guy left, went to the University of Washington, and took 10 guys with him. They lost 20 players at Arizona on the same night when the portal opened. Right, and that Arizona team is still pretty good coming back with Fafita and McMillan, the quarterback receiver tandem. So we're going to get into some of these other teams like in the Big 12, but you can completely lose your lineup or completely bolster your lineup.
Yeah. I don't know. Once again, I think that the NIL will benefit some coaches that can pull it off, that maybe aren't so old school, so set in their ways that they can change it up and keep people happy. Because that's really what you're doing. I hate to say it, but, our coaches never wanted to keep us happy.
Shaking hands, kissing babies.
They didn't care.
Ryan Van Gorder, Brian Kelly at LSU. These guys.
You got feelings? They didn't care. Right? Now, you got to care about people's feelings. And how are they getting along? And how'd you sleep?
You better get a
night?
Girlfriend who's in the psychology department if you got feelings you need to talk about, buddy.
How'd you sleep last night? Did you get a good breakfast? I mean, come on. That's new school.
It is. We're going to go, not that the West Coast is the touchy-feely side of this country, but I'm gonna go there. The Big 12, as we go west, has one guy who is meat and potatoes, and that's Kyle Whittingham at Utah. When you look at Utah, this is another one. similar to Wisconsin, why I like Wisconsin as a rising team in the Big Ten. He's full of fifth-year seniors at Utah. He's got a 25-year-old quarterback in Cam Rising, who's a hell of a player. He's got a great haircut. He looks like he could have just walked out of a 1970s Leonard Skinner concert yesterday, and he's ready to roll. He hasn't played in a full year. Last thing he did was win a conference championship. And really, when you look at Utah's schedule, they only have to beat Oklahoma State. Right. The only tough road game they got is Oklahoma State. They got Kansas State. They got Arizona. Yeah, they got Central Florida. Though, I mean, come on. Versus what you have to go through the gauntlet of the SEC, Utah's got a sweet ride to the college football playoff.
And the travel schedule, it's different. They've been doing what they've been doing for years. How many, I don't know, 10, 15 years. So the travel schedule, it's hot, right? It's not hot where they play a lot of the times. Utah's beautiful. There's no humidity. Now they got to go into humidity of Alabama and, Tennessee and, all the other teams that they've got to play. So it'll be an adjustment.
Oh, you're thinking Oklahoma. Utah is still in the big. They're still out west.
Oklahoma, not Alabama. But still, you're still going to places that it's 100 degrees and humid.
You got anybody else in the Big 12, though? Just keep it in category. We've got Utah, I think, is the class of the Big 12. Anybody up there you think could shock the world and get into this dance?
I haven't. I quite honestly, I don't watch that because it's on before or
it's
after
too late.
I go to bed. So I mean, I don't watch that much of it, but I mean, OSU is always good.
I'm going to throw in Central Florida. The big kid, KJ Jefferson, the quarterback from Arkansas, transferred to Central Florida. It does seem to produce some good quarterbacks. The coaching changes there. And then I mentioned Arizona with Fafita and McMillan. I think that those teams will be fighting for number 2. I think Utah will roll and they'll get into the 12. Then you got this group of 5, right, where a lot of people like Memphis. They think Memphis is going to go undefeated out in that Conference USA world. Obviously, Boise State. Now there's Texas State. Used to be North Texas when we were around. But Texas State got the big transfer quarterback from James Madison, McLeod. The MAC has got Toledo and Miami, the Miami of Ohio team who won it shockingly last year, upsetting Toledo, is back and very strong. And then you've got a whole bunch of, the Liberties, the Western Kentuckys. I don't think that they deserve to get – when you look at how balanced the rest of these conferences, do you think one of these group of 5 should get in?
No. I mean,
even if they run the table and go undefeated.
In the MAC?
In the 12. Do you think that they get into the 12-team playoff with an undefeated record?
If you win the MAC, should you be in the 12-team playoff?
Or Conference USA or the Sun Belt?
It's tough. It depends on how many undefeated teams there are, how many have one loss.
Did you win? Did you have a good non-conference win?
I mean, I think that you can argue in any situation, right? If if Alabama loses 2 games, should they be out of a 12? And they've got the best players, right? And they're in the best division.
All right.
So,
well, you said it. So let's run it down.
I'd say maybe.
So let's run it down. We got 12 teams in the playoff. Who are the 12? Who's in for sure?
Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, for sure.
Those are also my top 4.
I think definitely Alabama will be there. They may have 2 losses this year. Ole Miss, for sure.
I love Ole Miss.
Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan.
Ooh, Notre Dame, Penn State.
Michigan. I like Tennessee.
Somebody's got to get in from the ACC, Tom. I'm going to say it's Clemson.
I would agree.
I'm going to say it's Clemson. I think your Michigan, Penn State, I think they need to only have one ACC team make it. If Miami and Clemson both get in, I think one of those Big Ten teams is out. Either Michigan or Penn State is out. I think Wisconsin has a real chance. I think that with their schedule, they could sneak in.
Where do they play Michigan? Where do they play Ohio State? Do they play Michigan and Ohio State?
It is a very favorable schedule.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can assume that they've got all those games where they need to have them.
Yeah. Okay.
The Missouri team is one that I think Missouri LSU is another one. Like one of those. Missouri LSU. I don't think they're both getting in.
I would pick LSU over Missouri.
I think Utah gets in. And I think they're going to give people trouble when they get in because of that veteran lineup. Notre Dame, what do they go? Can they go? Can they get in with 2 losses, or do they have to have 1?
I think they have to have 1. Just because their strength of schedule. I mean, you've seen some of these teams.
It is a weak schedule.
It's a weak schedule. They can only have 1. And they may have to be undefeated to get in. Well, top 12, if they have 1 loss, they should get in. But
yeah. So who makes the championship game? Who are the final 2 playing in Atlanta on January 20th?
I like Ole Miss.
Wow.
And I like Michigan.
Lane Kiffin, the whole state of Tennessee just spit on you.
Yeah.
You'd like the Michigan Wolverines to go back-to-back.
I do. I think they're that good, that deep. I think the quarterback that they have
How much weed? Is it gummies you're doing now?
I do gummies and drink beer. That's it.
Oh, my goodness. I love your Ole Miss pick. I do think that they're going to get into the 4. I think that it is still Georgia and Oregon in the final game. And I think that this is the year of the duck. I do think that Dylan Gabriel leading a wealthy, enriched lineup with a great football coach in Dan Lanning, I think they find a way to get it done.
Okay. I don't. I think they're going to struggle in the Big Ten.
You think the travel is that big a deal for them?
And the heat. It's different. It's different. They're out there on the West Coast. Have you been?
I've been to the Oregon coast.
It's beautiful.
It's breezy.
It's breezy, but it's not hot. They don't have any 90-degree days.
But the Big Ten isn't known for heat. I mean, yeah, the dog days of summer, you're rolling into the Big Ten. It's going to be hot and humid in the beginning of the summer.
They'll be able to handle the weather. I just think it's a new opportunity.
You think they're going to get hit in the mouth early?
Yes.
They're going to get punched in the mouth early.
Right out of the gate.
In these steamy September games.
Yeah, but it's not just the weather. I just think Big Ten it's a different league. I think it's better than the league they came from, and I think that they're going to struggle.
All right. Well, that was so we've got our picks in for the college football championship game. We're going to do a little mini list here at the end, the best college football teams of all time, the GOAT teams. So I'm going to start with Oklahoma because you know my preference. The greatest football teams dynasty of all time. Obviously, Oklahoma had several dynasties. The Bud Wilkinson dynasty of the 1950s was the 47-game winning streak. Then they go into the Barry Switzer dynasty where they win another 3 national championships. Obviously, those teams are stacked. The team was so stacked that Troy Aikman was asked to transfer. That team was so good under Switzer, they asked Troy, hey, Troy, we're just not going to find a place for you on the field. But we got a deal set up for you at UCLA. You're going to love it. That's what Barry Switzer's all about. But the Oklahoma 1956 team, where they were amidst the 47-game win streak, where they hadn't lost a game in over 3 years, I don't think you go any better than that. What's your best college football team, Tom?
I like the 1987 Miami Hurricanes.
Over the 01 team, huh?
Yeah.
The 01 team had 17 NFL draft picks.
Well, I'm sure the 87 team wasn't far off. You had Benny Blades, you had Ryan McNeil. They both started and were Pro Bowlers in the NFL. And I know they had a bunch of other running backs too. So that's just the team that sticks with me.
The thing I love about Miami 91, Miami 01, the thing I love about the Miami teams is that they had these dynasties in Miami and they didn't care who the coach was.
Yeah.
Jimmy Johnson was coach for a minute. Schnellenberger was coach. Butch Davis was coach. Larry Coker was coach. They didn't have one guy stay there. They had 5 coaches through their dynasties at Miami. They just win.
Yeah, people used to ask me all the time, who's the best football player you played with? And I played with Barry, and obviously it's hard to not pick Barry. But number 2 is Benny Blades. He could play middle linebacker. He could play free safety. He could play special teams. He probably could have played offense. You know,
and the shortened career of Sean Taylor from the Miami Hurricanes.
Correct.
If he doesn't have an untimely passing, he might be the best strong safety in the history of NFL.
Yeah,
he was on his way.
Yeah, no, lots of good players.
The Southern Cal program obviously comes in here. You got the 72 Southern Cal team, the Charles White team that everybody loves, but there's a lot of, 04, Leinart, Reggie Bush. So Southern Cal's got some machine teams. The Vince Young 05 Texas Longhorns. Wow. And in recent memory, and I hinted to this when we were talking quarterbacks with Joe Burrow. The 2019 LSU Tigers. I mean, I'm not a huge Brian Kelly fan because we had to play against him in college. It's hard to find a more dominant team in a tougher, more competitive league and time, right? I mean, that was the best football team that I've ever seen in the modern era, and they had to do it against Nick Saban.
Yeah.
And did exactly what they needed to do.
Yeah. Every single receivers in the NFL that he had. What were the receivers again? The one plays with him now with Cincinnati.
Jamar Chase.
And then from Minnesota.
Justin Jefferson.
And there's another one.
Well, Neighbors is in the league now. I think he might have been a freshman.
No, he's a freshman this year. Oh, yeah, he might have been a freshman when they were there.
Might have been a freshman. But yeah, they're loaded.
Loaded
across the
on
board.
Defense, too.
I think everybody loves Trevor Lawrence's 2018 Clemson team. Obviously, Bear Bryant, you go back to 79 Alabama and the Alabama teams of the 60s, but then you've got 09 Alabama with the Nick Saban generation.
The 94 Penn State Nittany Lions, right?
The 95 Nebraska Cornhuskers, Tommy Frazier.
Yeah.
Oklahoma in 2000 with Bob Stoops, where they run the table, go 13-0, and destroy Florida State, who was favored by 20 points in the championship game. There's lots of great teams, but I don't think we can leave the broadcast without finalizing that one of those great teams running the table in the most competitive of moments is the 2023 Michigan Wolverines. Hail to the victors. It's 15 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
And I do believe that Harbaugh's team, no matter what the controversies that have to be blown away from the headstone of these teams, the headstone of this team in history that we just witnessed with the scholarship and gentlemanly behavior of Blake Corum with his NIL money, or all the other stories from that team, I think that team will go down in history as one of the great teams and one of the teams that is symbolic, Michigan being the winningest football program of all football programs, symbolic of what college football was all about.
And I think the Michigan team was great last year. And the one thing that sticks in my mind is the ability to run the football on any down and distance at any point of the game and be successful. If you can do that, the clock keeps ticking.
That's it.
You keep the clock ticking. Yeah, like when you were in college, but they could run the football on anybody, and they ran in every situation. 3rd and 8, they'd run the football. So if you can do that, you got that kind of offensive line, you're going to win.
Dangerous.
All
right, if you're interested in learning more, you can follow us on any of the major platforms. All the links and information can be found in the show notes. This was another well-produced, mediocrely researched, yet expertly presented episode of GOATQuest. Please go online at goatquest.com. Give us a list. Rank these teams yourselves. Tell us that we don't know what we're talking about. Criticize us in any way, shape, or form. Crack a beer. Get involved. Crack a beer. We love you. We miss you. Till next time, we're going to chug a lug. GOATQuest.